All right, let's talk about algorithms. We know they're everywhere, right? They're picking the movies we watch, the news we read, they're quietly shaping our whole world. But what about the really personal stuff? The choices we think are 100% ours? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on these hidden digital nudges and just how much they're influencing us. So let's just jump right in with a huge question. Can a piece of code, an algorithm, actually sway your vote in an election? Or even crazier, can it make you swipe right on one person over another on a dating app? I know, it sounds a little bit like science fiction, but you're about to see the reality is, well, it's way more interesting than you might think. Okay, so to get how this works, we need to look at the two main ways an algorithm can nudge you. Think of it like a toolbox. On one side, you've got a helpful suggestion, something that's pretty upfront. But on the other side, you've got something much sneakier, a kind of manipulation that can steer your choices without you even noticing. So on one hand, you've got what's called explicit persuasion. This is the stuff you can see. It's a big, flashing, recommended for you label, or a 90% compatibility badge. It's totally direct. But then there's covert persuasion, and this is where it gets interesting. This method is all about exploiting our brain's little shortcuts, our cognitive biases, basically using our own psychology against us to guide our decisions from the shadows. So the big question is, which one of these is actually more powerful? Well, some researchers at the National Institutes of Health decided to put this to the test in two totally different scenarios, politics and dating. And what they found was pretty shocking.
First up, the political experiment. So the researchers created a bunch of fake political candidates and showed them to people in the study. The goal was simple. Could they use these nudges to make people vote for one specific candidate over the others?
And check this out. The explicit, in-your-face approach, it worked like a charm. When they slapped a plus 90% compatibility badge on a candidate, that person got way more votes. But the sneaky, covert method, where they just showed a candidate's face more often to make him seem more familiar, it did absolutely nothing. So it seems when we're making a logical choice like voting, we respond to direct recommendations.
But hold on, because then the researchers switched things up. They ran the exact same kinds of tests, but instead of voting, they asked people who they'd be willing to message on a dating app. And this is where the results flipped, completely on their head. So get this, in the dating world, that plus 90% compatibility badge, it totally failed. People just didn't care. But the covert method, the one that did nothing for politics, it was a massive success. Just by showing someone a face a few extra times, making it feel more familiar, people rated that person as significantly more attractive. Wild, right? So what's the big takeaway here? It's that context is everything. The researchers proved that how an algorithm persuades you depends entirely on what kind of decision you're making. A rational one, like voting, is vulnerable to one kind of nudge, while a more emotional one, like dating, is vulnerable to a completely different, much subtler kind.
Now, that was all in a controlled lab. But what happens when you take these ideas and you scale them up? When you apply them not to a few dozen people in a study, but to billions of us out here in the messy, chaotic world of social media? Well, that's when things get really serious.
And that brings us to this term you really need to know, computational propaganda. Look, this isn't your grandfather's propaganda poster. This is a whole new beast. It's using AI, automated bots, and massive social networks to pump out disinformation and manipulate public opinion on a scale that was literally unimaginable just a few years ago.
And the speed of this change is just staggering. I mean, think about it. Back in 2016, we were talking about fairly simple memes and trolls. A few years later, it evolved into coordinated bot networks. And now we are entering an age of a full-blown AI-driven propaganda machine, one that can create ultra-realistic deepfakes and synthetic content automatically and at scale. This isn't just some abstract tech problem. This has real, measurable, and pretty scary consequences for all of us. So let's look at the actual data. Let's see how this digital manipulation is hitting democracy where it hurts. First, let's just talk about elections. The data shows that the number of national elections targeted by these huge disinformation campaigns has more than tripled in less than a decade. What used to be a rare threat is now, unfortunately, a standard playbook in modern politics. The second major casualty here is trust. It's just cratering. As all this viral disinformation floods our feeds, our trust in core institutions like the government is plummeting. I mean, look at this. Globally, trust in government dropped from 49% to just 41% in only 5 years. And that decline lines up perfectly with the rise of this computational propaganda. It's not a coincidence.
And you have to ask, what about the platforms themselves? What's their role? Well, while they've made some small steps towards being more transparent,
the fundamental problem is still there. Their business model, their entire reason for being, is built on algorithms designed to maximize engagement. And it just so happens that sensational, polarizing, and often false content is really engaging. It's a feature, not a bug.
Okay, so that's all pretty bleak, but it is not a hopeless situation. In fact, experts from all over the world are working on a multi-layered defense system to help us build up our resilience against all these digital threats.
The key is that there's no single silver bullet. It's got to be a four-part strategy. First, you fight fire with fire, using AI to spot the AI-generated fakes. Second, you need smart regulation, like the Digital Services Act in the EU, to force these platforms to be more accountable. Third, and this is a big one, is critical education, teaching media literacy to pre-bunk fake news, basically inoculating people against it before they see it. And finally, we need international cooperation to set some global rules for the road.
And here's the bottom line from leading researchers on this. Not a single one of these solutions is enough on its own. The only way to build real, lasting democratic resilience is for all these strategies, the tech, the laws, the education, and the diplomacy, to work together, in concert. Without that integrated approach, our democracies are just going to remain wide open to attack.
Which, it leaves us all with one last big question to think about. The technology driving all of this is advancing at a dizzying pace. The algorithms are, without a doubt, getting smarter. The real question is, are we?